when will you die? And that ain't a threat. That's a final destination question. Because if you've made it this far in life, guess what? You've been dodging death like Neo in the Matrix without even realizing. The Final Destination franchise is back with part 6. And while the deaths are wild, ridiculous, and low-key cartoonish, there's something deeper going on here. Tony Todd, the OG voice of death in this series, you know him as Candyman, just gave us his real-life goodbye in Bloodlines. And it's one of the most haunting human moments ever dropped in a horror film. But before we get all sentimental, let's talk about how this franchise made death look like Looney Tunes on steroids. Look, if you grew up like me watching Wile E. Coyote and him getting anvils dropped on his head, unalived over and over again, then Final Destination is what happens if that same energy got R-rated, hired Quentin Tarantino as a consultant, and said, let's add a bunch of blood and gore and guts. In this new one, we had death so wild, I was trying not to choke on my popcorn. Like, it was funny the whole way. I'm not gonna give no spoilers, but it was funny. Like, stuff that looked straight out of Mortal Kombat. It was wild. And if you're a fan of the franchise, you already know what I'm talking about. But look, these aren't just deaths. They're puzzles, traps, domino chain. It's like the universe became a petty X with a master's degree in engineering. It's crazy, y'all. But see, the real horror of the Final Destination franchise, it ain't the gore, it's the reality behind the story. Think about it. If you're alive right now, that means you've already dodged death. The car that barely missed you. That one time you slept through your usual route and found out later there was a fatal car crash. The bullet that flew past the party that you left early. You were spared. But like the film says, spared doesn't mean saved. Because you might have dodged it back then, but death don't forget. Look, in 2025, the death expectancy for men, the average is 76 years old. For women, it's about 81 years. So if you're in your 30s or 40s, which would include me, you've already used up like 40 to 50% of your time. Dang, that's wow. Final Destination is just reminding all of us, every day you wake up, that's a win. You've already survived the worst day you didn't know was coming. And let's take it a little deeper, especially if you're like me and you grew up in the inner city. If you've lost people to gun violence, to the prison system, addiction, or even to them unaliving themselves, then you know that survivor's guilt is a real thing. You sat with that thought, why am I still here? Same hood, same school, same mistakes. But you made it out and they did. That's a type of pain that Final Destination actually speaks to, just with a lot more car crashes and flying pipe. And then there's Tony Todd that I mentioned earlier, Candyman himself. He's been a haunting voice of this franchise since day one. But in Bloodlines, he delivers one final scene and it wasn't even in the script. The directors let him go off script to speak to us, breaking the fourth wall, so to speak. Because in real life, Tony Todd was battling terminal illness. This wasn't just a character exit. This was a real man looking death in the face and saying, I've had my time, I'm gonna enjoy what's left. You should too. And that moment hit me harder than any of the death scenes in the entire franchise. Because when a horror icon starts speaking like a poet, you just gotta listen. And yeah, I'm rocking my Captain Planet shirt today on purpose. Because Final Destination and this show actually has something in common. They both remind you that actions have consequences. The world doesn't revolve around you, and it's best to work together to make it a better place while you can. Captain Planet would say the power is yours. Final Destination is like, yeah, the clock is ticking, homie. So whether you're trying to save the planet or just survive another day, the message is the same. Make it count. Look, we know it's just a movie, but if you really look at it, Final Destination is a reminder that fear is not the enemy. Wasting time is. Don't live afraid of death. Live fully in your purpose. Laugh hard. Love even harder. And if you feel like your spirit's trying to tell you something, don't ignore it. That premonition might not be a vision. It might just be your soul trying to protect you. Rest in peace to Tony Todd. Rest in power to the friends that we lost. And if you're still breathing, you ain't done yet. So make the most of this life. I am the Nostalgia King. Peace.